The 16th century Mughal war machine was terrifying. Picture hundreds of thousands of soldiers, elephants, and heavy cavalry moving as a slow, unstoppable mass. Their entire military doctrine relied on overwhelming an opponent with sheer numbers in massive, open-field battles. Look at this artillery piece. The Mughals deployed these thick, iron cannons to pound enemy troop lines and shatter stone fortifications with brute force. With this much firepower, Mughal commanders viewed their expansion south into the Deccan Plateau as a certainty. They expected a rapid conquest. But a force this large is only invincible if the opponent agrees to fight by the traditional rules of engagement. When the Mughal army finally pushed south, that forward momentum ground to a halt. Notice the shift in landscape. The flat northern plains end at the Deccan Plateau, a rugged terrain offering no flat ground for traditional formations. Waiting within this rocky natural fortress was the leader of the Ahmadnagar state, Malik Ambar. Ambar did not come from Indian royalty. Born in Abyssinia, he was sold in the slave markets of Baghdad before eventually arriving in the Deccan. Facing the invasion, Ambar realized that meeting the superior Mughal forces on a flat battlefield meant the total annihilation of his men. He decided to rewrite the rules of war, turning the conflict from a contest of brute strength into a lethal game of mobility and environment. This illustrates the flaw inherent in any massive invasion force. A giant block of troops requires an elongated logistical tail, stretching miles behind it just to feed and water the soldiers. That supply line is the lifeblood of the army. If you sever it, a force of 100,000 men transforms from a threat into a starvation risk. Furthermore, heavy Mughal armor and cumbersome cannons bogged down in the rocky, muddy hills of the Deccan. The Mughal Empire's greatest advantage, its scale, had become its primary liability. To exploit these vulnerabilities, Ambar developed a doctrine called Bargagiri, guerrilla warfare. He recruited local Maratha fighters, specifically selecting men who possessed a deep understanding of the local valleys and mountain passes. The core asset of this system was light, unarmored cavalry. They prioritized extreme speed and agility over raw power. The tactical directive was to avoid the main body of enemy troops and instead target those slow-moving Mughal supply convoys. Ambar layered in psychological pressure. His men launched high-speed night raids, depriving the Mughal camps of sleep and eroding their morale. By the time the Mughal cavalry could mount their horses to counterattack, the raiders had vanished into the natural defenses and stone bastions of the hills. Bargagiri was an ecosystem of frustration. It was designed to bleed and exhaust the enemy army until retreat became the only viable option. Throughout Malik Ambar's lifetime, the Mughal Empire failed to occupy Ahmadnagar. This prolonged resistance broke the perception that Mughal conquest was inevitable, showing the rest of India that their heavy forces could be stalled indefinitely. Ambar provided a replicable structural blueprint for asymmetric warfare. He proved that a smaller, localized force could dismantle a superpower by weaponizing attrition and geography. While Ambar's campaigns raged, a young boy from a local Maratha family was closely observing this new way of war. That observer was Shivaji, the future leader of the Marathas. Shivaji adopted the mechanics of Bargagiri, perfected them, and used them to carve an independent empire out of Mughal-controlled territory. This military evolution shifted the balance of power across the Deccan for the next century. The rise of the Marathas and the eventual Mughal retreat from the Deccan grew from these tactics, first proven by a man who began his life in a slave market.